Well, hello everyone. It is Friday night. Welcome everyone for joining us, and I cannot speak apparently this evening. This is I, Kat, the night editor, and with me this evening is
Jay Ishiro Finney, author and alien in a human suit.
And this is a very special show here on Wordcraft. I think it's the first for this show. Not quite a nothing show. No, we actually do have a topic to talk about this evening.
Nor is it quite a talking shop.
No, no, this is, in light of events, this is something fun. This is something to get everybody happy and enjoy the moment.
And it is about writing.
Yes.
Dead people writing.
It's about
because,
dead people writing.
Dead people do write. Did you know that?
Well, now here we have to put on our serious faces here. You know, it's not
I'm
just
a 4'11". I'm a 3'11" alien. How?
It's not just dead people. These are dead authors. These are authors who had that monkey on their back so badly that even in death they had to get out that one last piece of literature. And so the big question is it good?
Is that the question?
Well, I was aiming for doing it that way.
Well, I suppose this is Wordcraft, and we talk about technique and good books, bad books.
I mean, do you want me to be perfectly honest? I got this really cool book on spiritualism that has all of these supposed channelings through mediums, and a lot of them happen to be dead people giving us messages, including post-mortem publications, and it's hysterical, and I had to share.
So, yeah, we're going to talk about the writings of dead Mark Twain.
Well,
dead Shakespeare. Dead.
Well, no. I wish you hadn't said it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My plan was to read a passage and have people guess.
Oh. Well, they can still guess.
Well, still, I wanted people to guess. But, oh well, it's okay. It's still fun. So, anyway. So, do we have any announcements first before we hop into it, or?
Oh, the announcements are, well, let everyone know the show's live because I've been banned from streaming for the temporary on the other channel because our last guest talked about a zombie plague, and I guess that just was a little too close to reality.
YouTube thought that it was the.
No, don't even say the word because we want to keep this channel clean.
I was gonna say the the unknown infection of unknown origin. Okay.
Yes, and even though I wrote to them and said, well, he's talking about a zombie novel, they still gave me a community strike.
Yeah, so they're fucktards. But we are going to talk shop here. We are going to be serious.
Yes, very serious.
Yes. So anyway, so the excerpts that I'm going to be reading for all of you today is from the book The Talking Dead, a collection of messages from beyond the veil from 1850 to 1920, published by Curious Productions. And again, it's quite enjoyable. I've been giggling about it all day, including the entire section about how heaven is a place on Mars.
Well, let's hear about. Well, Ray Bradbury did write that story.
What, that heaven was a place on Mars?
Yeah.
Well, this was in the 1800s. This is before Bradbury. Actually, specifically, that section, let me pull it back up here. Heaven on Mars.
Yes, here we go. Mars is Heaven, published as a short story by Ray Bradbury in 1948 in Planet Stories. And you can hear it on X-1.
This was written in 1873.
I have a feeling his is better.
I have a feeling his is too. I'll read some of that as well. But the one that got me thinking, we need to do we need to do a Talking Shop episode about this, was specifically the posthumous story by Samuel Clemens, aka Mark Twain, entitled, let me pull it up here. Where did it go? Ah, there it is. Entitled Jap Heron. Published.
Not a racial slur, by the way.
No.
Happens to be his name because he's dead.
Jasper.
Jasper.
Oh,
okay.
Wait, Mark Twain?
I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
No, his name is Jasper.
So. Oh, by the way, everyone, this channel doesn't seem to inform listeners so rapidly, so let everyone know we're live right now.
Mark Twain was not a spiritualist, though he was known to attend seances purely for the entertainment value. A man after my own heart. The beloved American writer and humorist died in 1910, but wasn't done writing. A medium and novelist named Emily Grant Hutchings, working with another medium, Lola V. Hayes, claimed Twain spelled out 2 short stories and a novel, 1 letter at a time, through a Ouija board between 1915 and 1917. Up the Furrow of Fortune, A Daughter of Mars, and Jap Heron. So this was written between 1915 and 1917. And I have been trying my damnedest all day to find A Daughter of Mars, and I can't locate it. And it's been driving me up the fucking wall. But anyway, I wanted to share with you at least the first 2 paragraphs of this book, Jap Heron, because I was reading it going, if I was still slush reading, this would have gotten an immediate nope in big bold letters. It's like, gee, no wonder this chick. I read more about this woman, and apparently she had been writing for ladies magazines at the time, but couldn't really get her career to go anywhere. So she decided to pretend to write as Mark Twain, and that at least got her some notoriety. But is it good? That is the question. Is it good?
I think we already know the answer.
Well, the fact that I said that I was going to give it a big nope. Now, here's my rule when I slush read. I give it 3 paragraphs. I force myself to read 3 paragraphs and then make a decision if I'm going to go any farther than that. There have been stories where they didn't make it they didn't even make it through the 3 paragraphs that I've gone a nope.
This actually is not a bad example for aspiring writers, because you were a slush reader, and you are the editor-in-chief of 01 Publishing. You've done this job quite a few times.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of gives them a sense of what happens when the slush reader gets it.
Yeah. So my rule, it's slush reading is subjective. Okay. It's subjective. I could read something and go, oh, hell no. And somebody else could read something else and go, wow, this is amazing. It's just, it is subjective, but there are certain things I try to look for, like, how quickly do they establish the setting, the main character, the tone of the story. Basically, why do people give a shit? And it's my personal feeling with short stories, at least, that those things need to at least be hinted at, if not established, by the end of the 3rd paragraph. And even if not all of those things are established by the end of the 3rd paragraph, it should at least be engaging enough that I'm willing to continue reading in order to find those answers. So there's that. So here we go. Jap Heron. As every well-bred story has a hero, and as there seems better material in Jap than any other party to the story, we will dignify him. Mary Heron feebly asserted her rights in the children by naming them respectively Fanny Maud, Jasper James, and Agnesia. Jasper deteriorated.
Milk of magnesia?
Yeah, Agnesia. He became Jap. And Jap he remained, despite the fact that Fanny Maud developed into Fanny Maud, and Agnesia changed her cognomen without recourse
This
to
is-
law to Maybell.
This is already awful.
Yes, this is why I said it's like if I was slushing, this would be gone.
I mean, I'm already ready to pull the shade down and just boring.
Do you want me to stop?
Is there anything laughable to follow, or
The fact that it doesn't really go anywhere on the first page entirely. This is it. And I'm like, this is supposedly Mark Twain. This
You know,
is supposedly Mark Twain writing.
I would have to say this is enough to get Twain to rise from the grave and kill someone.
Yeah. And it took me a while because then suddenly she randomly introduces some character named Jackie, which I thought, is Jackie Jap? No, Jap is somebody else. Jackie is another character who then dies. So it's like, why did you introduce him? It's like, why do I care?
And then Jackie entered the room.
It's
He
like-
said, "Everyone, hi, I'm Jackie." And then he died.
You know, I hate to say it, but there is a reason why there were women's magazines at that time.
You may want to go into that.
Well, you know, she's talking about you know, his mother and his sisters. No mention of his father. The only other male character on the first fucking page is an uncle that dies in the same paragraph he's introduced. You know, and it's just talking about how Jackie like runs away from home, and I didn't get any farther than that because it was just too stupid. But it's like, this is supposed to be written by the great Samuel Clemens.
You know, I have a feeling that if it had been written today via Ouija board, right, Tom and Huck would show up and be gay lovers.
Wait a second.
What? Did you see something?
Okay.
Okay, well,
Okay, Jap apparently gets a job working at a printing press.
as a semen tester.
No, as a printing press.
I'm sorry.
Jap straggled irregularly inside and heard the old Washington hand press groan and grunt its weary way through the weekly edition of the Herald. After the last damp sheet had been drenched from the press, and the papers were being folded by the weary-eyed, inky demon who had manipulated the handle, he slouched forward. "Say, mister," he asked confidently, "do you do that every day?" indicating the press. "'Cause I'm going to work for you." The editor, pressman, and janitor looked upon him in surprise and pity. "I appreciate your ambition," he said, more in sorrow than anger, "but I have become so attuned to starving alone that I don't think I could adjust myself to the shock of breaking my fast on you." Jap was unmoved. "My dad once thought he'd be an editor, but he got married." He said calmly. "Sensible dad," commented the editor with more truth than he dreamed. "I suppose that he had 3 meals a day and a change of socks on Sundays." "But Ma had to get 'em," urged Jap. "I want to be an editor, and I'm a-gonna stay." And stay he did.
Holy shit.
Chapter 2.
Why was there a sudden change in the dialogue?
I don't know. Chapter 2. Run out and get me a box of sardines. Ordered the boss of the Washington Press. "I've got a nickel. I can't let you starve. I've lived 3 months on them. Look at me." Jap surveyed him apprehensively. "I'd hate to be so thin," he complained, "and I don't like sardines nor any fishes. My dad fed us them every day. Alas, Alice wanted to taste donuts.
What?
Can I buy them?"
What the fuck am I hearing?
I'm hearing Simone's Law. Inappropriate talk of food.
I'm going to work for you at the press. My dad had the job, but he got married.
Here, buy some sardines. I want donuts instead of fish.
You go home, look at that tree.
Yes. Socks are good.
Socks, yeah. This is nonsense dialogue.
Ellis Hinton laughed shortly and spun the nickel across the imposing stone. Jap caught it deftly. An hour later, he appeared for work, smiling cheerfully.
I ate them sardines and donuts.
Why the shiner? Queried Ellis, indicating a badly swollen and rapidly discolored eye. Kid called me Red Top, said Jap bluntly. Love, oh gracious, Ellis explained. What is the shade? It's red. quoth Jap. But it ain't his business. If I'm gonna be an editor, nobody's gonna get familiar with me. Was he talking about his short and curlies?
Well, his dialect just changed overnight.
It changed in 2 paragraphs. This was Jap's philosophy, and
Jap's philosophy was no one's going to get intimate with me.
No one's gonna know what my pubic hair looks like but me.
Or I'm going to punch him. That's his philosophy.
That's his philosophy. That's a good philosophy. This was Jap's philosophy, and in less than a week, he had mixed with every youth of fighting age in town. The office took a metropolitarian airs because of the rush of indignant parents who thronged its portals. Ellis pacified some of the mothers, out-talked part of the fathers, and thrashed the remainder. After he had mused the other office with Judge Bowers and tipped the case over with the final effort that threw him, Jap said solemnly, surveying the wreck, "If I had a dad like you, I'd have been the president someday."
What the fuck am I hearing?
This is nonsensical.
So he gave up on being working in a press to instead beat everyone up in town?
No, he is working in a press. He's just also beating up everyone in town, and the editor/janitor is apparently standing up for him.
I'm so confused.
I am confused.
I have never known so much about absolutely nothing. What is not going on.
Ellis gazed ruefully into the mess of pie and kicked absently at the hell box. "I'll work all night," cried Jap eagerly. "I'll clean it up." "We'll have plenty of time," said Ellis gloomily. "We have to hit the road, kid. Judge Bowers owns the place. He has promised to set us out before morning." So
Because he kicked everyone's ass?
Yeah, so now the Herald's been kicked out.
So they're abandoning their business and...
Well, no, the owner of the buildings told them they have to get out.
Oh, because Jasper kicked everyone's ass.
Yes, and then his boss kicked their parents' asses. Like, I wish you all could see his face. You haven't lived till you've seen a gray look confused. Should we move on? Should I find something else to read?
You seem to be having fun, so why not?
Well, no, you just seem very confused.
What's the story?
I don't know.
Who's the ball?
Jap's apparently the ball. His name's in the title.
And he spends his life he gets a job doing one thing so that he can kick everyone's ass in town.
Yes.
And his boss is okay with this.
His boss is enabling. Yeah.
I'm sure Mark Twain really, really wrote that.
Yeah, I'm sure he did too.
So what is there another Mark Twain story, or are you gonna read us something else?
I was gonna read something
else.
Well,
Then explain how Mark Twain of the Dead was put out of business.
How he was put out of business?
how the family intervened and said,
Oh, yeah. After that wonderful book and two short stories, Mark Twain's daughter tracked down Emily Grant Hutchins and sued her into non-existence. And now you can
but not
read
after first punching her in the tits a few times.
probably, but because of that, now you can read all of these books. Because they're public domain. In fact, yeah, you've got it up now. The Gutenberg project has them. So enjoy. It is fun. So tell me, can this be saved?
You need a story to save a story.
I agree.
This is just a series of events.
I agree. It's also somebody who doesn't understand why neither neither Tom Sawyer or Huck Finn are compelling characters.
No.
Although I don't think she understands why anything's a compelling character.
Jap, the ginger thug who kicks everyone's ass.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he doesn't have to be drunk to do it, too.
So it's even ethnically inaccurate.
Yes.
Okay.
Although, well, no, Huck Finn didn't get into scraps without a reason. So no. Okay. So that is we will put poor Samuel Clemens to rest for the moment. Okay, what are people interested in? I can
well, you said you had a few others you specifically wanted to go over.
I can go over a few, yes.
What was another real winner?
Now unfortunately they're kind of long, so I don't know if our audience can take them. But are we at all shocked that dear Edgar Allan Poe couldn't rest easy in his grave and had to get out more poems?
No, I'm not shocked.
Yeah. As one of history's greatest writers of mystery and macabre, it is no surprise that his ghost would be of interest to those who believed in communications with the dead. Plus, it was a fresh one. Poe died in October 7th, 1849, about a year and a half after the Fox sisters started the spiritualism movement. And I can get into the Fox sisters for those of you who don't know about them because they are interesting. With spiritualism being adopted by many religious figures eager to preach their values, Poe offered a voice that would attract many and might cause some to reconsider their ways if he offered a new, more positive outlook on life and truth about death, such as in The Dark World Described. And in some cases, he simply had more poetry to write. One medium, Lizzie Doughton, claimed to have channeled Poe's spirit and recorded a collection of new works which she published in Poems from the Inner Life in 1863.
Really?
So medium Lizzie Doughton, the works are entitled Poems from the Inner Life from 1863. There's a letter from Edgar Allan Poe, but it's kind of long. I can read it if you want, but I
No.
found his poems more entertaining.
Okay, let's hear one of his undead poems.
The Lost Soul. Hark the bell, the funeral bell, calling the soul to its goal. Oh, the haunted human heart from its idol doomed to part. Yet a twofold being bearing, she and I apart are tearing. She to heaven and I to hell. Going, going, hark the bell. Far to hell, tolling, tolling, fiends are rolling, whitening bones and coffins reeking. Fearful darkness grimy creeping, on my soul, my vision searing, she disappearing, drawing from me by a soul I cannot see, whom I know can never love her. Oh, that soul could I discover, I would go, steeping in woe, down to darkness, down to hell. Hark the bell, farewell, farewell.
That Nemo song?
I thought I heard it on Metropolis Records. Yeah.
Yeah, those bad goth lyrics.
Pretty much. Like I said, it's more entertaining.
So who really wrote this?
Emily.
Wait, are these all chicks?
Yes, every single one of them.
Look, okay, see, I'm seeing a pattern here.
I think there might be one that's a dude.
Suck at writing, use spiritualism, suck at writing, use intersectionality. Yeah, it's.
I mean, she's even got a sequel to The Raven.
And once again, we've got chicks claiming some dude's work, riding on their coattails. It's kind of like taking, let's say, Tolkien's work and making it really, really woke.
What is this? Spirit Poem on the Raven. In 1856, spiritualist Reverend Thomas Lake Harris claimed to have channeled the spirit of Edgar Allan Poe, who apparently wanted to offer a new version of his once most famous poem, The Raven. Harris had just recently, quote, discovered his psychic powers along with the ability to write poetry. He was known, in fact, to improvise his poetry rather quickly, which gave the impression that perhaps the words flowed from some otherworldly source. In this case, Poe. But before Poe's ghost rattled off a new raven, he offered a brief introduction explaining himself. So this is a dude. So this is a reverend who was channeling Poe in order to get more people to his church. Do you want to read it? This is the letter Poe apparently wrote through him explaining why he was redoing The Raven.
And what's the dude's name?
Thomas Lake Harris.
Dear Mr. Harris, touch my work and I shall rise from the grave, shove my bony hand up your asshole, and pull out your fucking intestines. You are a hack writer with no talent. Your religion is a fraud, and don't you dare smear me all over your shit. Don't bring me anywhere near your hemisphere of shit.
Considering Poe actually did go to West Point and did get into a lot of legal trouble getting into fights while drunk, I wouldn't doubt it.
Well, you know what? I think it would be more interesting if you tell the audience a bit about the spiritualist movement.
Okay.
Oh, Lovecraft versus C.S. Lewis.
Whoa.
That would be awesome.
Oh, I want that.
Epic rap battle.
I want no, the new Dead Talk Back. Yeah, that skit where they're talking, where you get Churchill and Lincoln talking about the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that would be great.
And you would never, ever wear a Super Bowl ring. Yes, exactly.
Okay. For those of you who may not know, and I'm just gonna give a brief overview. Because I could do an entire episode just on the spiritualist movement in general. And even then, I'm not an expert. I'm only just now really doing the deep cuts in my own research. But the spiritualist movement really began in the 1800s, the 1850s. Did Poe actually say it, or were you making it up? It was our own little gray man channeling Poe.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. No, I believe it was the 1840s or 1850s and it really came into popularity with the Fox sisters, as mentioned previously. Now, there had been people previous to this who had claimed to talk with the spirits of the dead, to channel the dead, to channel angels, to channel, all sorts of different beings from beyond the veil to deliver messages to us mortals here on Earth. But the Fox sisters became famous because they claimed to actually talk to the spirits in such a way that other people could experience it. They were the ones that began rappings. Oh, oh, spirit, if you're within this room, knock 3 times. Stuff like
I
that.
heard a different word come out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Wrappings?
Rappings. That's what they call them, rappings.
That was okay.
I know you're thinking.
I'm thinking of epic rap battles between Poe and C.S. Lewis.
No,
Or
that
not
would
Poe,
be cool.
Lovecraft and C.S. Lewis.
That would be pretty damn awesome. I want that epic rap battle. But no. They called them rappings because when you knock on a door, it's called a rapping. So
because you couldn't possibly have someone hidden in the room.
No, actually, it was more simple than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The art of spiritualism and mediumship to make these manifestations is so amazingly simple, and a lot of them it's obvious how they did it, but other ones when you find out, it's like, oh geez, yeah, no wonder. But the Fox sisters, they had come up with very ingenious ways of deflection where all eyes would be engaged on one sister who's supposedly talking, while the other one would do things like hook her foot under the table in order to make it levitate. She would do knockings on the ground, other things like that. And then they were originally in a rural area of Pennsylvania, and then they got moved to Rochester, New York, where they became.
Were they run out of town or something?
No. They were moved there to live with their aunt, who was in high society, and there they became the talk of the town and became part of high society. I believe even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle himself went to talk with them to see how exactly it is that they talked to the spirits, and was fooled by them. From them, the idea of talking with the ghosts, talking with the dead, spiritualism spread like wildfire, and England especially really took to it. I mean, we took to it here in the US, but England especially took to it. What was it? It's Through the Looking Glass, but Wonderland is a Lovecraft hellscape. Oh, what if Through the Looking Glass was Nyarlathotep? But England especially took to it because, with new inventions and their industrial revolution taking off and these new ideas coming out, and a lot of people starting to leave the church because of science. And then to top it all off, you have the Queen herself, Queen Victoria. Her beloved Albert dies, and she actually does have mediums come to the palace and consult with mediums at least twice, it's recorded, to try to contact Albert. And whoa, if the queen is talking to the dead, of course the rest of us can too, because she sets the tone for what you can and cannot do. And so mediumship and spiritualism becomes this huge phenomenon that even lasted till well, technically it's still going, it's just changed in tone, but mediumship as we know it ended around the 60s. Oh, and Ishi is he is adjusting the temperature.
Well, that thermostat does not work correctly.
No, it doesn't. We need to change it.
All right.
So anyway, but with mediumship, you have things like, wrappings. You have, if any of you are seeing or have seen Nightmare Alley by Del Toro, what the main character is doing, as far as claiming that he talks to the dead, seeing spirits, other things like that. I haven't seen Del Toro's version of the movie yet, but I have the 50s version and I've read the book. And in the book, he even sets up a house where he has, ghostly trumpets, and he does the ectoplasm, and he does all of the other tricks that mediums would do.
Explain the ectoplasm trick,
The
since everyone thinks Ghostbusters.
Okay. Ectoplasm, originally the term as far as for spiritualism goes, ectoplasm would be the medium, the person who's channeling the spirits would hawk up what was supposed to be a ghostly mass that oftentimes would glow. In order to show that they really were in touch with the spirit realm. And really, what it was they had swallowed some cheesecloth, and either they were doing the trick of they were holding it in their esophagus, or they actually had swallowed it completely and they had to completely vomit it back up. But what was interesting was some of them had gotten a hold of radium. And so the stuff would glow. So you can imagine that they had cheesecloth that had been dipped in radium squirreled away in their bodies.
I wonder if any of it rubbed off on their throat or their lips.
I kind of wonder. But although I think what they did is they'd soak it previously so it had dried, but it stayed that way. But I don't know.
And of course, ectoplasm is actually a plasm within the human cell. And the idea is it was claiming the spirits were using that to form a semi-solid vapor to take forms.
And then there were other effects that they would do. They would have dolls hidden in random corners, and they would actually string them on strings in the dull light and have them float around. Look, there's ghosts. They would often use psychological tactics where they would get to know their marks. They would get to know the regulars that were coming to these seances and ask them, well, was there a certain smell or sound that your dearly departed would make? And then they would make sure to use that perfume or those sounds during the seance to further show, yes, indeed, it really is this person who's coming to visit you.
Well, my dearly departed would yip like a coyote during sex.
You're joking.
I am joking, but
that kind of shit, they would do that.
Go on.
No, they would do that. They'd have an interview. It's well, is there a certain sound that makes you think of this person? It's well, I always remember during XYZ this sound, they would do the sound, or they would say these certain words, and then during the seance that would happen. I mean, it's easy shit that a lot of people you would think nowadays would be able to pick up on, but unfortunately they don't. And
that's amazing what they'd fall for.
Well, apparently, if in my readings is true, it's because Conan Doyle so badly fell for the spiritualist movement because he wanted to believe it. He's the one who invited Houdini over to his house for a ritual. Houdini instantly saw it for the fraud that it was, and said, no, I got to prove that this is wrong.
Also, explain the fact that there was an air of scientific legitimacy during this era to spiritualism.
Well, like I mentioned before, this is the late 1800s. The late 1800s, for both America and for England, mainly for England, or at least more violently for England.
Violently?
Violently.
Okay.
The shift in the way people were living was the Industrial Revolution. So you were having this huge boom of scientific achievement. And then in the way late 1800s, you'd have people like Edison and Tesla, and you had radios, the invention of the radio. Not necessarily that everybody could have one at that time, but there were radios and telegraphs. And so you had this boom of all these different sciences where suddenly, with electricity, new things were possible. And suddenly you can speak to somebody from across the state, if not across the country. You had all these fascinating, great ideas that had seemed to be fictional just 20 years before were now possible. So, of course, in an era where you have the telephone, the light bulb, radios, things like that, it made perfect sense to people of, well, of course they would come up with these new and interesting inventions to allow you to pierce the veil and perhaps talk to the dead. And so a lot of people were using scientific terminology or using hints of scientific terms like magnetism. Magnetism became a huge term. Everybody was using magnets. Magnets were the key to talking to the dead. Harmonics, vibrations and frequencies and all this other stuff. These were the buzzwords of the day in order to not only talk to the dead, but also to gain insight into the future yourself.
So as ridiculous as it sounds, that speech Krasker gives at the beginning of the Dead Talk Back
is 100% yes, correct.
That is the kind of stuff they really did say.
Yeah. For what he's referencing is the film The Dead Talk Back that Mystery Science Theater covered, which is the title of today's episode.
Yeah.
So,
got a question here.
Conan Doyle knew Harry Houdini. Oh, yeah.
So did Lovecraft.
And in fact, Conan Doyle and Houdini were both members of the Psychical Research Institute, along with a lot of other learned men of the time. Now, Houdini, he left the Institute because he didn't like their methods. They left it too much to personal interpretation to determine whether or not something was a fake or not. And, Houdini's a magician. His job is to make people think the fantastic is real. And so with all of these mediums and spiritualists, he could spot them a mile away. He was James Randi. You just watch how James Randi debunked a lot of these people. There you go. And you get an idea of what it was Houdini would do. Only Houdini apparently wasn't as polite. he would do the classic bit of turn the lights on in the middle of a seance and flip the table over and say, look, this is exactly how they're fooling all of you, and then leave.
Well, the thing is that Houdini was a hardcore skeptic, but he was also a believer.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was very upset at all the shysterism.
Yeah. That is the thing. He knew that there were more things in heaven and earth
for his show.
Yes, for us.
Your philosophy, yeah.
Exactly. He knew that. But he also knew how to con people because he's a magician. Of course he did. Well, actually, he's not a magician. He's an escape artist. There is a difference, and I have since learned also through my research that you have to be careful about using those terms because some people get really pissed if you use one for the other. But anyway, so yeah, I've been doing a lot of research into spiritualism because, quite frankly, I find it fascinating. This need for people to believe and need to be deceived. I mean, just no shortage of people wanting to be deceived from this time period, and how elaborate the scams would get. And it's interesting because that period informs a lot of our modern day ideas of how, in fiction, of how ghosts and spirits manifest themselves. Dan Aykroyd, as an example, hugely into the spiritualist movement, and he put a lot of that stuff into Ghostbusters. And you wouldn't know it was there unless you knew about the spiritualist movement.
Yeah.
Same with reading a lot of the works of Richard Matheson. To be honest, it was reading Hell House that, and just how methodical and scientific Matheson approached Hell House, and all the tools to determine, is it really a haunting or is it a scam? That got me really interested in the real movement, and in, well, how would they figure it out back then? How would they look at somebody like the Fox sisters, for instance, and try to determine if they were legit or if they weren't? There's one that I want to do some more research on. What's his name? Is it Mark the Possessed Mongoose?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's Mark it's something the Possessed Mongoose. I think his name is Mark, but I think I'm wrong on that. Ireland. Because of course there are mongoose in Ireland. And there are some people that to this day swear that this mongoose was possessed by the spirit of a demon named Mark. Where, and other people are like, no, the youngest daughter was really good at throwing her voice, and that's what it was. But to this day, people swear that that this mongoose was really possessed, that it really had followed this family around, that it really had I wouldn't say terrorized them, because it really didn't terrorize them. It just was an annoyance that the family had to endure for years and years and years. And the story goes is that they started hearing cussing through the walls of their house, and finally they ferreted out the mongoose, no pun intended, and the mongoose swore that it was a demon that was possessing the creature, and that they had to, and that it would keep them company and sing songs to the girls while they did their evening sewing, and it would tell epic stories of its long life, but it also cussed worse than a sailor, and would cuss out any neighbors that would come to visit them. And especially if any of the sisters had a suitor coming a courting, the mongoose would try to chase the person off. It's just, and the Institute of Psychical Research came and investigated this family multiple times, and some went away saying, no, this is a scam, and others went away going, no, this is absolutely real. So to this day, there's controversy.
You might want to address this.
Okay. Most of the techno babble and Ghostbusters was legitimately from the research. Indeed, it was. Well, of course, the PKE meter. My jaw hit the floor when I was older. I was watching Ghostbusters 2, and they brought up a gagamometer, and my jaw hit the floor because I went, that device is in Hell House, written in the 70s by Richard Matheson. Matheson being also part of the Psychical Institute. He was part of
well, it was the UCLA, or was it USC? I think it was UCLA. Parapsychology
department.
Yeah.
Which grew out of,
which also researched the
entity
case,
Mhm.
which the movie really took liberties.
Mhm.
But that is one of the most legit cases ever recorded.
Yes. All right, so there is interesting phenomenon out there. That is the thing. There actually is interesting recorded phenomenon. Now, is it dead people? Is it Mark Twain coming back to write his long lost stories?
No,
No.
no, it isn't.
Fizz Chozo is not familiar with the entity.
There was a movie made in the 80s called The Entity, which does a pretty good job of a.
I left my drink in the other room.
No, you didn't.
Well, then let me steal some of yours.
Oh, go get your drink. The Entity was it was a film based on an actual case, and the case itself was fascinating because they did actually turn up some fairly decent evidence, and just from personal experience, I've seen similar things, but it did have instances of poltergeist activity. They did see and managed to photograph, and no, they're not fake, orbs, as they are called.
But they're not the dust mites that most people see.
Right. And essentially what it was this woman was claiming her dead ex was visiting her and raping her as a ghost and abusing her. But there was some very interesting things about the really wild paranormal activity that was occurring, which is it only happened when the woman was around and when she was drunk. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, they did actually measure actual temperature drops. They recorded light in pitch black rooms. And yeah, they witnessed, and I don't know if they recorded any of it, but there was poltergeist activity. But
oh, they and yeah, they witnessed plates flying. I'm not sure if it was caught on camera though.
But really, what it came down to is all the phenomena seemed to be directly linked to the woman and the woman's moods. It didn't really seem to be ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
But she swore it was her ex-husband. And the movie is actually pretty decent up till the end. Would you agree?
Yeah.
And the end is just complete science fiction. And what it was they went to the researchers and said, okay, budget's no concern. What would you do to test this? And they said, well, we'd do this.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah, the end scene, quite frankly, was jumping the shark. In my opinion, they wanted to outdo Poltergeist.
Bad idea.
Yeah.
Well, Poltergeist wasn't trying to look real.
Mm-mm.
Poltergeist was trying to take every crazy idea that had appeared in all the old EC comics and put it on the screen.
Yeah. And they did it quite successfully.
Okay. So is there any other?
Well, I can share with you Dead Shakespeare sonnets.
Sure. If they kind of drag on, let's drop it. But
well, there's just one.
Okay.
I can do other things too. Like let's see.
Well, let's try one of Dead Shakespeare's sonnets.
I mean, I'm not going to bore you with the sequel to Hamlet. Yes.
Are thy down with OPP? Yay, you know me. Or no.
Well, then there's the direct communications with the ghost Phineas with Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. This was the ghost that spoke to him and his family the most. And it's,
well, no. This is a writing podcast. Let's hear what Shakespeare has to write.
Well, Conan Doyle's a writer.
But he's not saying he wrote any of these from the grave.
No, this is what the ghost was saying to him. So let's see here. Oh yeah, there's yeah, strangely enough, you'd think that the great emancipator Abraham Lincoln would be more interesting, but his section was actually kind of boring on things that he would say. Yeah. Then you bear no such person's ill will? Answer, brothers are we all, even Booth. Yeah, that's kind of boring.
Did you know you can eat anything you want here in Deadland? I'm so fat now.
Question, if this is Lincoln who replies, tell us in what light you now view Booth's act. Answer, John Wilkes
It
Booth.
hurt.
John Wilkes Booth was the ordained man whose maddened brain was used to emphasize the divine way to martyrdom for the sake of the work of life's progress. It's like, what the fuck does that mean? Really, what does that mean? We've also got George Washington.
Dear Mr. Lincoln, what do you think of Booth? I cannot wait to see him in the afterlife so I can
Oh, we've also got George Washington.
so that I may
here.
give him a taste of my pimp hand.
I can regale you with the revised version of the Raven. It's a little long though.
No. Just let's hear a little bit about Shakespeare.
Wait a second. What is this? Here the Infants wrote the following 2 sonnets.
Yeah.
Oh, they've got a couple of sonnets here. I'm
Oh
just
well,
wondering.
Michael Connor wants to know about the documentary Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Did Lincoln talk at all about his vampire hunting?
Well, this was written in the 1800s, so no. No, he did not.
Okay.
You would think he would, but no. Sonnets of Shakespeare's Ghost. The words procured by Gregory Thornton. The ornaments made by William Blau. Never before imprinted. 1920. The wise world saith, I unlocked my heart, when I of thee and thy dear love did write, and would each word of mine to false convert, doing my simple sense a double spite. It saith thou wert but shadow born of naught, but vain creation of an espite rhyme. While fashion's fool my strained invention sought to better them who best did please the time. But wherefore say they so, and do dear wrong? To thee those who worth was my sole argument. To me...
Okay, yeah, this is awful.
Yes, it's awful. I was almost done with it, and that was all I was going to do. There was a lot, actually. Let's see here.
And nobody believed he wrote that. I just can't imagine why.
Well, it was published. You can apparently buy it. There's also Benjamin Franklin.
Okay.
Let's see, what is it? According to other mediums, he continued to speak from the spirit world about such topics as inventions and liberty, the later having been recorded on a psychophone. I don't know what a psychophone is. I wasn't able to find one. Of course, I didn't look very hard.
Maybe it's the device that was in the Dead Talk Back.
Maybe it was. Let's see here.
Yeah.
I didn't get too into Franklin, so I don't know how entertaining it is. But I do find it interesting. Mr. Burns, the publisher, wrote from England to the medium residing in Paris, asking if she could induce the spirit of Benjamin Franklin, who had introduced modern spiritualism to the world, to inform the public why so many mediums were detected in fraud and why such good mediums as the Davenport brothers had degenerated into the exhibitors of the phenomena, at the same time renouncing the truths they had once fostered. That was all one sentence.
Well then.
No, it's just the ludicrousness of a publisher in England writing to a medium in Paris to induce the spirit of Benjamin Franklin, one of our first Americans, to say something. That is convoluted.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Franklin appeared a genial, whole-souled spirit, but would only answer his questions by the following axioms. Aphorisms, sorry, in which we hope to riddle will expound to the readers. The following following aphorisms are, this is why I keep saying axiom, because my eyes are tired and I'm reading other things. It is a well-known axiom that fraud engenders. God, I can't read today. Fraud engenders fraud. That is apparently from dead Benjamin Franklin. The psychic force of a determined doubter calls up lying spirits. So if you have doubters in the room, of course you're going to have fake spirits in the room. Go to a spirit circle, determined to catch the medium at fraud, and at that very seance, the most reliable medium will act like the devil. So if you're going looking for a fraud, you're going to find one. This is Benjamin Franklin. The first American president who was never an American president.
Right.
This is him. The whole arcana of nature, spiritual and material, can be opened by the man who seeks, with patient investigation, to penetrate its mysteries.
I think I like this better. Here.
William, forget Lincoln. I want to hear what Andrew Jackson is doing. Did he finally shoot those 2 SOBs? Is he keeping his pimp cane steady?
I think he is.
I don't have Andrew Jackson in here, but I do have... Who do I have? I have Washington Irving. This caused Ishii to have to take a shit, so... I love that unknown documentary, Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. You know, I have not read the book, nor have I seen the movie. I mean, the ludicrousness of it, I can see the potential. So is it actually worth paying attention to? And yes, Michael Connor, I totally agree that the proton pack was had actual logic to it. They had Caltech, I think it was Caltech scientists tell them how it could be done. So when Egon says, yes, it's actually scientifically possible, he's not joking. Medium, can you have Benjamin Franklin state the obvious? Benjamin Franklin. Why, yes. Indeed. I don't know. How can anybody buy this shit? Let's see. Peter Cooper. I do not know who Peter Cooper is. I'm flipping through the book looking for other things. And then there's the section that is all about how Mars is the place to be. It says, I know this isn't about writing, but I'm going to share this anyway because Ishii's indisposed at the moment. Once a spirit has left Earth, it has access to the great vastness of, well, anywhere that's not Earth. According to several late 19th century mediums, and before them, Emanuel Swedenborg, that includes Mars. Swedenborg claimed to have left his body and visited our interplanetary neighbor. There, he discovered a race of Martians living in peaceful civilization with no system of government. More than a century later, a Swiss medium named Helene Smith began falling into trances and taking her own spiritualistic visits to Mars. The red planet, she said, was filled with wonders, including carriages that glided by without horses or wheels, houses with fountains on their roofs, and at least one very strange 2-foot long beast sporting a flat tail, the head of a cabbage, with a big green eye in the middle, 6 paws, and many ears. Smith even learned to speak and write in Martian. This section, however, features just one tale of Mars, delivered in the medium Lizzie S. Green by the spirit of Madame Frederica Ehrenberg. Ehrenberg was born in 1794 in Sweden, just 22 years after Swedenborg's death. She found herself greatly inspired by his works and became an ardent Swedenborgian, even writing books and pamphlets to promote the movement. Her spirit left her body in 1873 and allegedly drifted all the way to Mars. Madame Ehrenberg experiences and observations as recorded by Green and published in a book written by the spirits of the so-called dead follow in their entirety. So, and I'm not going to read her entire exploits into
I think
did something fall?
okay.
There you go. I'm not gonna read the whole thing in its entirety. It's just I find I can't get past the first paragraph because it's just hilarious. And the first paragraph's quite long, but I won't read all of it. Or I don't have to read it.
Well, I think it kind of fits. I mean, these people were all saying that they were like, spiritualism was bringing them this information.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting about this is that there was a very prolific pulp writer who was primarily published in Amazing Stories named Richard Sharp Shaver. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And here, why don't you just read this passage?
Okay. Shaver claimed to have worked in a factory where, in 1932, odd things began to occur. As Bruce Lanier Wright notes, Shaver began to notice that one of the welding guns on his job site, by some freak of its coils field attunements, were allowing him to hear the thoughts of the men working around him. More frighteningly, he then received the telepathic record of a torture session conducted by malign entities in caverns deep within the earth. According to Michael Barkin, Shaver offered inconsistent accounts of how he first learned of the hidden cavern world, but that the assembly line story was the most common version. Shaver said he then quit his job and became a hobo.
Now, keep going. Read this part.
During 1943, Shaver wrote a letter to Amazing Stories magazine. He claimed to have discovered an ancient language he called Mantong, a sort of proto-human language that was the source of all earthly languages. In Mantong, each sound had a hidden meaning, and by applying this formula to any word in any language, one could decode a secret meaning to any word, name, or phrase. Editor Ray Palmer applied the Mantong formula to several words and said he realized Shaver was onto something.
And what this guy did was he wrote this epic series of stories called I Remember Lemuria, Thoughts and Records of Lemuria. And they're nuts. They really are.
Mm-hmm.
But they're all these really bizarre, fantastical stories about the history of Lemuria and life on Lemuria. And he claims that he remembers it all. And
whoa, okay.
And I mean, some of it was kind of like how, Ralt's got hit by lightning.
Yeah, I was going to ask, did he...
And suddenly just all the words started coming?
Yeah.
Difference is Raltz knows he's writing fiction. This guy was convinced he was remembering a proto-history.
Oh.
And yeah, to this day, this stuff is really famous, but this guy could actually form sentences. Now, granted, the editor of Amazing Stories rewrote it all to make it more coherent. And yeah.
Wow.
But apparently, you see, on Lemuria, they did wear these steel bullet bras
Oh.
because, because as one would do, and dress like Flash Gordon.
Well, wasn't that in Blood Diner?
Yeah, actually, it was. So there hasn't been one in 100 million years.
Yeah.
A real Lemurian feast. Okay. So, I don't know. We've been on for an hour. You want to call it an evening, or do you have anything to add to this?
Not really. I just I got a new book and it's entertaining and I wanted to share it.
All right. Well, it's been good hanging with all of you, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And who knows? Hopefully tomorrow I'll be able to start streaming on the other channel again. Other horrible, sad
Have
news.
we read Lensman?
I'm familiar with the Lensman, but I've never read the Lensman. I saw that anime though, that is apparently hard to find.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, cool.
But I have horrible news. It looks like we're going to have to go crawling back to Rumble. For better or for worse, that seems to be the platform that's taking off.
I don't consider it crawling back to Rumble.
It pisses me off.
No, I'm with you. They were assholes.
But that appears to be the channel that's taking off, or not the channel, the service, as the viable, I guess, competitor. So I'm going to set up a WordCraft channel there because YouTube's gotten increasingly more restrictive, and I swear they want to get rid of me. Sorry, guys. I really am beginning to get the sense they're trying to get rid of me.
Well, for those of you who don't know, our last interview, though, is still up and kicking on this channel on WordCraft, got a strike against it.
A community strike, and that's why we can't use the other channel now, because they claim that our guest was spreading misinformation about a virus of unknown origin.
Yes.
And I tried to explain to them, no, he was talking about a zombie book. They pretty much said they didn't care. They said we were spreading medical misinformation. I said, he's writing about a zombie book. He was telling us about a zombie book he wrote in 2016. And apparently that qualified as medical misinformation about a certain disease we're not allowed to talk about.
Yeah. So, anyway.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think they also just hate me for my race.
Yeah, I think they're racist.
I really think, them being a bunch of reptoids, they dislike the Greys.
Well, you're neither black nor white. You're gray.
I'm the worst, yeah. I'm not even green.
You're not even a hafu.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.